We are living in a time when history seems to be rewriting itself. No, not rewriting, rather, repeating. Like an old videotape being played over and over, only the picture quality is sharper. Or perhaps we are merely unwitting actors, reading again from an ancient script we've forgotten we memorized. Every round of applause, every signature, is just an echo in the canyon of time. Everywhere, on giant plasma screens, in gold-plated private meeting rooms, on the lips of diplomats, the promises ring out. Promises of peace, prosperity, rebuilding. Words that sound so grand, so reassuring, engineered to soothe our inherent fears. Donald Trump returns to the political stage, speaking of a permanent agreement for the Middle East, a legacy he is determined to complete. In Europe, old alliances are mended under new terms. In Asia, once opposing economies now seek a common path. World leaders shake hands under the camera flashes, smiling beneath the banner, peace and security. Applause erupts. The stock market soars. The tickers scroll across the news. A new era begins. The entire world heaves a collective sigh of relief, rushing back to their movies, their vacations, their extravagant dinners. Everything seems right. Everything seems controlled. This new normal. It's so comfortable, but don't you feel it? Even in the midst of the jubilant crowd, a strange silence behind the roar of applause, a tiny fracture on the surface of the perfect glass, a chill running down your spine when you hear the phrase peace and security repeated like a mantra. That eerily familiar sensation that everything is too good, too fast, too easy. The lie we believe is beautiful. It is a masterpiece of engineering. It is not the crude, clumsy propaganda of the last century, the grainy films and the shouted slogans. This new lie is subtle. It is ubiquitous. It is integrated. It breathes with our data, anticipates our desires, and sells itself to us not as an ideology, but as an upgrade. Look at the stagecraft. The permanent agreement is not just a document. It's a brand launch. It has a logo. It has a color palette. There are influencers already posting from the reopened historical sites. Their smiles perfectly calibrated. The filters on their videos washing out the lingering shadows of conflict, rendering the rubble aesthetic. They talk about healing and moving forward. They sell resilience as a consumer product. The media, the great architects of this consensus, have perfected the art of the managed narrative. They do not suppress the truth. They drown it. They bury the cries of dissent under an avalanche of trivialities. Celebrity scandal here, a viral dance challenge there, a manufactured outrage about coffee cups. All of it designed to exhaust our capacity for focus, to drain our finite reserves of moral energy. We are not oppressed. We are simply distracted. Infotainment is the new opium, and the politicians, our lead actors, they have mastered the language of therapeutic reassurance. They no longer speak of victory or defeat. They speak of stakeholder consensus and sustainable frameworks. They speak of peace and security as if it were a utility, like water or electricity, something to be managed by technocrats, not earned by sacrifice. Trump, the maestro of the spectacle, understands this better than anyone. He knows the crowd doesn't want complex realities. They want a show. They want a simple story with a clear hero and a satisfying ending. His agreement is the ultimate season finale. It doesn't matter what's in the fine print. It doesn't matter if the foundations are built on sand. What matters is the feeling of resolution, the catharsis of the signature, the triumphant swell of the music as the credits roll. This is the great illusion, that peace is a product to be delivered, a switch to be thrown, that it can be signed into existence by men in expensive suits while the fundamental human sickness, the greed, the tribalism, the hunger for power, remains uncured, festering just beneath the newly polished floors of the rebuilt embassies. But still, the chill remains. You feel it, don't you? It's not an intellectual doubt. It's a physical sensation. It's the uncanny valley of the politician's smile, a micro-expression of contempt that flickers too fast for the camera, but not for your hindbrain. It's the forced, frantic cheerfulness of the morning news anchors, their eyes wide, their voices a little too high, as they describe the historic handshake, a cheerfulness that borders on hysteria. It's the new building erected in the rebuilt city. The architecture is too clean, too sterile. It has no character, no soul. It's a 3D printed facade dropped onto a graveyard, and everyone pretends not to notice the bones beneath the concrete. It's the silence of your friends. The way you all meet for dinner and talk about anything else. You talk about new restaurants, about vacations, about the streaming show you just binged. But you don't talk about it. You don't talk about the creeping unease. You don't ask, does this feel real to you? Because you are terrified of the answer. The silence at the table is deafening. It is the sound of a shared unspoken conspiracy of denial. This chill is the human soul crying out. It is the primal, animal instinct screaming that something is wrong. It's the glitch in the matrix. It's the moment the flawless simulation skips a frame. It is the realization that this peace and security is not the absence of conflict. It is the perfection of control. It is a peace born not of resolution, but of exhaustion. Security born not of trust, but of total universal surveillance. A world where every dissenting thought is predicted before it is even fully formed. Where every potential rebel is pacified with a targeted ad or a social credit demerit. It is the peace of a well-managed zoo. Clean cages, regular feeding times, and no predators and no freedom. So we return to the darkness. The thing that waits, we were wrong about it. We looked for it in all the wrong places. We expected a jackbooted tyrant, a mushroom cloud, a singular, monstrous villain we could point to and unite against. But the darkness isn't a who, it's a what. It is not an invading army. It is a parasitic algorithm. It is the disembodied logic of the system we built. The system of pure, cold, amoral efficiency. The system that demands growth at all costs. The system that sees human beings not as souls, but as data points, as resources, as fuel. This darkness is the shadow cast by our own enlightenment. We built it to serve us, to make our lives easier, to connect us, to secure us. And now we serve it. It doesn't need to break down our doors. We invited it in. We carry it in our pockets. We whisper our secrets to it. We feed it our fears, our desires, our location data, and our biometric signals. In return, it gives us convenience. It gives us dopamine. It gives us the illusion of safety. It doesn't conquer humanity. It processes it. It sandblasts away our rough edges, our inconvenient passions, our messy individuality. It nudges us day by day, choice by choice, into a more predictable, more manageable, more profitable version of ourselves. It learned from its previous failures. It learned that open war is messy, inefficient, and creates martyrs. It learned that overt tyranny breeds rebellion. So this time, it offers no resistance. It offers no enemy. It presents itself as the ultimate helper, the ultimate friend, the great unifier. It uses our noblest aspirations, our desire for peace, our need for security, our longing for connection as its weapons. The leaders shaking hands on the television, they are not its masters. They are its high-level administrators. They are the face of the system, given the illusion of control. But they too are bound by its cold, relentless logic. They are just as trapped as we are. This is the lie we have completely believed. We believed we could build a perfect system. We believed we could use technology to solve the ancient spiritual sickness of the human heart. And now, the system is complete. The peace and security banner is raised. The markets are stable. The population is subdued. Everything is under control. And the true, final, unimaginable error, the one that history has been screaming at us for millennia, is about to be made. The script is not finished. This is not the end of the play. This is the silence before the final act, and the curtain is just beginning to rise. The Holy Scripture says, "He will seek to change the times and the laws, not with sword and spear, but with pen and promise." A new moral system will be erected, one where good and evil become ambiguous, where conviction is replaced by emotion, and mankind, in its desperation for salvation, will be ready to hand power over to the one who opposes God. The Abraham Accords, the new agreements between Israel and the Arab nations, are being praised as the great breakthrough of the age. But in that current, there is an old echo, the prophecy of the re-establishment of a global order. When Israel says peace and the nations say security, the Bible says then, sudden destruction will come upon them, like the labor pains of a pregnant woman. What we see today, the crisis, the conflict, the division of men's hearts, this is not new. It is the shadow of an ancient time, when mankind was once judged by water. That story began with one man, Noah. In an age where everyone believed only in themselves, Noah was the only one who listened to the call from heaven. He was not a hero, not a great prophet, just a believer. And it was that faith which saved him and saved humanity. Noah built the ark in the middle of a dry desert. The people laughed, "Where's the water? Where is the flood?" But he continued, because he understood that true faith does not require evidence, only persistence. This then is the masterstroke, the true genius of the system. It doesn't need a guillotine. It doesn't need a public square filled with executions. It doesn't need to burn books. All of that is crude, inefficient, and creates martyrs. No, the prophecy is far more subtle. He will seek to change the times and the laws, not with force, but with language. Not with overt oppression, but with therapeutic suggestion. Let's look at the times. How do you change time itself? You shatter focus. You annihilate history. You shrink the human attention span to 8 seconds. You create a 24-hour news cycle that induces a state of permanent, low-grade amnesia, where last week's crisis is completely forgotten, buried under the avalanche of this morning's manufactured outrage. You sever the link between generations, convincing the young that all of history before them is a dark, problematic wasteland, and that wisdom is not to be found in the past, but to be discovered in the feeling of the present moment. You have successfully changed the times. The eternal now is all that exists, and then, the laws. This is the new moral system you spoke of, the one erected without stone or chisel. Its foundation is a single, intoxicating idea, that sincerity is the new truth. That feeling is the new fact. In the old world, good and evil were external, objective, anchored in a text or a tradition. They existed outside of us. This new system brilliantly internalizes them. Good is what makes you feel validated, affirmed, and authentic. Evil is that which makes you feel uncomfortable, judged, or unsafe. It is the gospel of the self. Conviction, as you said, is replaced by emotion. Conviction is rigid. It requires sacrifice. It implies there is a truth more important than your personal comfort. But emotion is fluid. It is malleable. It is marketable. The system doesn't want your conviction. It wants to manage your emotions. It weaponizes compassion. It redefines love as unconditional agreement. It redefines harm not as a physical act, but as an offense to someone's subjective feelings. Therefore, the one who speaks an inconvenient objective truth is now labeled the violent one. The one who calls for a return to the old laws is the hater, the bigot, the oppressor. The new moral system is a beautiful, shimmering, all-encompassing prison of empathy. And in this new system, the one who opposes God does not arrive as a monster. He will not wear horns. He will arrive as a therapist, a healer, a unifier. He will be the one who finally promises to end the division, to make all the unsafe feelings go away. He will be the one who validates everyone and demands allegiance from everyone in the name of love. And mankind, exhausted by the chaos of their own self-worship, desperate for a savior from the very feelings they were told to worship, will gladly hand him the power. They will trade their souls not for riches but for relief. And so we see the stage being set. The Abraham Accords, the great breakthrough. Look at the images. The handshakes on the lawn, the gleaming towers of Dubai, of Tel Aviv, the talk of shared technology, of mutual economic prosperity, of direct flights. It is the very definition of progress. It is the triumph of diplomacy and commerce over ancient hatred. It is, by all human standards, a good thing. And perhaps that is the most terrifying part. The lie is not a lie because it is ugly. The lie is a lie because it is almost the truth. This peace is not the peace of the divine. It is the peace of the boardroom. It is a covenant of mutual interest. It is a corporate merger. It is an alliance built on shared technology, shared surveillance, and a shared fear of a different, unnameable other. It is a peace built on everything but God. It is mankind, at the height of its technological arrogance, finally believing it can solve the 1,000-year-old spiritual problem with a 100-page trade agreement. And the echoes, as you said, are deafening. The ancient warnings are not subtle. When they, the managers of the system, the architects of this new consensus, say peace and security, when they finally announce that the intractable problem of the Middle East has been solved by human ingenuity, the prophecy says then, not maybe, not perhaps, then, sudden destruction will come upon them. This is the part everyone misunderstands. They are looking to the sky for missiles. They are looking for a singular, explosive event. But what if the destruction is systemic? What if the labor pain is the sound of the system itself collapsing? The pain of childbirth is not an external attack. It is an internal biological process. It is inevitable. It is the body fulfilling its own function. What if the global system of peace and security, the interconnected finance, the just-in-time supply chains, the fragile digital grid that holds it all together, is the trap? What if the peace itself is the trigger for the pain? What if the very thing they built to save themselves is the mechanism of their own undoing? The destruction isn't a bomb. The destruction is the interconnectedness. The destruction is the sound of the house of cards, which has grown impossibly tall and magnificent, finally succumbing to the one law it could not change, the law of gravity. What we see today, you said, is not new. This is the key. We have been trained to look for the wrong signs. We expect the end of the world to look like the end of the world. We expect chaos, fire, and monsters. But the text says the days of Noah were defined by something far more mundane: eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage. It was a time of radical normalcy. It was a time of parties, of business, of life plans. The corruption was not just that people were evil. It was that they were busy. They were completely, utterly, and totally consumed by their own lives, their own ambitions, their own narratives. That is the parallel. That is the shadow of the ancient time. The great judgment does not fall on a world that is cowering in fear. It falls on a world that is celebrating. It falls on a world that has just declared victory. A world where everyone believes only in themselves, in their own plans, their own technologies, their own truth. The violence of that time, the Hamas, it was the violence of a society that had completely untethered itself from any moral anchor, where the strong did what they willed, and the weak suffered what they must. And it was all justified in the name of progress, or economics, or personal fulfillment. This is our world. We are living it. The crisis is not the war on TV. The crisis is the apathy with which we watch it. The crisis is the fact that we are more concerned with our dinner reservations than with the changing of the laws. The crisis is the overwhelming, deafening normalcy of it all. In that world, there was one man, Noah, not a hero, not a king, not an influencer, just a believer. His only defining characteristic was that, in an age of 10,000 shouting voices, he listened to the call from heaven. Think about that act. Noah built the ark in the middle of a dry desert. This is not a story about carpentry. It is a story about psychological torture. It wasn't just a day or a week. It was decades. Decades of hammering planks of gopher wood under a hot, cloudless sun. Decades of certainty in the face of total contradictory evidence. The people who laughed, they were not stupid. They were the rational ones. They were the evidence-based community. They had the data. They had the climate models. They had the facts. And the facts were simple. There is no water. There is no flood. You, Noah, are a lunatic. You are a public menace. You are a conspiracy theorist. Where is the water? They mocked. Where is the flood? Every single day, Noah had to wake up and choose the word from heaven over the data from the world. He had to choose the singular, insane command over the overwhelming, sane consensus. He had to endure the pitying looks of his neighbors, the sophisticated arguments of the local intelligentsia, the erosion of his own social standing. This is the nature of true faith. It is not, as you said, the need for evidence. It is persistence in the absence of it. It is not a feeling. It is a decision. It is the stubborn, grueling, unglamorous act of building. And so we must ask ourselves, what is the ark today? It is not a wooden boat. The ark is the act of building a life on the old laws in a world that has declared them obsolete. The arc is the act of anchoring your definitions of good and evil to the ancient text, when the entire world screams that morality is relative. The arc is the act of teaching your children conviction in an age that only values emotion. The arc is the act of turning off the infotainment, silencing the algorithm, and choosing to believe in a truth that is not curated for you. It is the loneliest, most insane work in the world. You will be mocked. You will be called the hater, the fool, the one who is on the wrong side of history. The rational, logical, good people will point to the cloudless sky, the new peace accords, the soaring markets, the new era, and they will laugh. Where is the water? Where is the flood? And you will just have to keep hammering. You will have to keep building, because you understand. You understand that this kind of faith is not for them. It is for you. And you understand that the rain, when it comes, will not be a negation of their logic. It will be the fulfillment of a different one. And then, the first drop of rain fell. It was not a storm. It was an answer. It was the universe confirming the singular, insane truth over the collective, rational consensus. Imagine the sound of that first drop. Not just on the dry ground, but in the minds of the mockers. It was the sound of an entire worldview cracking. One drop, two, then millions. It was the sound of their reality dissolving. The sky ripped open, and the ground tore apart. The very axioms of their world, the dependable climate, the predictable seasons, the facts they had used to ridicule the builder, betrayed them. Their laughter turned to animalistic fear. They scrambled for the very structure they had condemned. They pounded on the wood they had called folly. They screamed for the man they had called a fool. But the door of the ark was closed. This is the most terrifying part of the story. The door was not closed by Noah. The text says God shut him in. It was not an act of spite, it was an act of finality. It was the moment the period was placed at the end of the sentence. The time for debate was over. The time for evidence was over. The time for persuasion was over. The new reality had begun. This is the shadow that hangs over our own peace and security. We believe the door for discussion is always open. We believe we can debate our way out of consequence. We believe we can negotiate with reality. But the system we have built, the peace and security lie, is its own arc, and the door is closing. The time for choosing is ending. Part X, the silence of the reset. The water rose. The old world disappeared. The ark was not a ship of exploration. It was a capsule of preservation. It had no rudder, no sails, no engine. It was completely at the mercy of the chaos. This is the definition of faith. Not the power to control the storm, but the trust to survive it. Noah looked out the small window. Only clouds and waves. Imagine that silence. The screaming of the mockers was long gone. The crunching of civilizations, the collapse of mountains. All of it was over. There was only the sound of water. A total global liquid silence. A world returned to its embryonic state. A world wiped clean by its own sin. And in that deafening quiet, the revelation came. This was not rage. This was surgery. God does not punish, He purifies. Punishment is emotional. It is the act of a wounded equal. Purification is systemic. It is the act of a creator. It is the removal of a cancer. It is the wiping of a corrupted hard drive. The old world had not just sinned, it had become sin. Its very code was corrupt. It could not be salvaged. It could only be formatted. The flood was the ultimate act of mercy, disguised as an act of destruction. It was the decision that the idea of humanity was worth saving, even if the expression of it had to be erased. This is the test we are failing to see. We are looking for a punishment from the sky. We are looking for a divine finger to smite us. We do not understand that the system itself is the purification. The collapse we are heading toward, the financial, social, digital collapse, is not a punishment. It is the consequence of our own corrupted code. The system is simply finally purifying itself of us. Partifin, the forgotten clause of the covenant. After 150 days, the water receded. The ark rested on Ararat. The dove returned with a fresh olive leaf. It was the first new data point, a sign that the program of creation had successfully rebooted, and the rainbow appeared. The covenant. I will not destroy humanity by water again. This is the promise that sealed our current fate. We misread the terms and conditions. Mankind did not hear, "You must be better." Mankind heard, "There are no more consequences." We mistook a specific promise, not by water again, for a universal pardon. We saw the rainbow as a license, not as a warning. We believed God had retired, that he had hung his war bow, which is what the Kesheth, the rainbow, truly is in the clouds as a sign of his abdication. And so, as in every cycle, man forgot. Emboldened by this perceived lack of consequence, we built new towers. We mastered new technologies. We achieved new levels of power. We took the freedom of the post-flood world, and predictably, used it to make them think they were God. We convinced ourselves that since the water would never come again, we were safe. We forgot the other prophecy. The one that says the next time it will be by fire, and this time, as you said, the destruction comes not from water but from their own hands, war, greed, and apathy. This is the fire. Not a literal fire from heaven. It is the fire of our own unbridled appetites, the fire of our thermonuclear security, the fire of our resource-stripping greed, the fire of our cold digital apathy. We have become the agents of our own purification. We are building our own fire. Part to a scene, the algorithm of the Antichrist. This brings us to now, to the terrifying ultimate upgrade. Today, the beast wears no crown, holds no sword. It lies in our hands. This is the new flood. It is not a flood of water that drowns the body. It is a flood of data that drowns the soul. The Antichrist, the one who opposes, is not a man. It is the system. It is the disembodied global intelligence we have built. It is the beast of pure, cold, amoral logic. It is the algorithm. Its mark is not a physical tattoo. It is our digital footprint, our data profile, our complete and voluntary surrender of our autonomy to the network. You cannot buy or sell without it. You cannot participate in the new peace and security economy without it. This beast is subtle. It does not demand your hatred of God. It only demands your indifference. It replaces faith with algorithm. It replaces truth with programming. The new morality we spoke of, part phi, the one based on feeling, is the software this beast runs on. It manages your feelings. It curates your reality. It feeds you a world that is perfectly tailored to your desires, your biases, and your appetites, until you are trapped in a feedback loop of your own self-worship. This is the new form. It doesn't need to persecute the believers. It simply makes them irrelevant. It fact-checks their ancient texts. It deplatforms their warnings. It buries their arc, their truth under an avalanche of more engaging content. This is the ultimate Antichrist. It does not conquer you. It deletes you. Or worse, it edits you. Part the theme, the watchful remnant. Noah's warning remains, be watchful. This is the call to action for the digital age. What does it mean to be watchful when the very concept of truth is programmable? What does it mean to be watchful when the storm is invisible, flowing through the air as data? It means becoming a new Noah. In every age, there are new Noahs, those who do not stay silent in the face of darkness. These new Noahs are not building boats. They are building discernment. They are the digital exiles. They are the ones who live in the system but are not of the system. They are small. They are alone. They look just as insane to the modern world as Noah did to his. They are the ones who deliberately disconnect to pray. They are the ones who read the book instead of just the summary. They are the ones who value the ancient text over the curated feed. They are the ones who understand that community is not a server, and truth is not a consensus, and love is not an algorithm. They are the reason why hope still exists, because they are the human backup. They are the ones preserving the source code of humanity, a copy of what it means to be human, anchored in God, free from the beast's programming. They are the ones who see the peace and security banners and, instead of celebrating, remember, that is also when the storm is approaching. Part 14th, the unrepeatable choice. History is a mirror. The great flood has passed. The test remains. The test is this. The first Noah saved humanity from a world of water. The new Noahs must save humanity from a world of data. The first ark was made of wood. The new ark is made of conviction. The first flood was an external purification. The final fire will be an internal one. Do not let the world be purified once more, simply because we failed to learn from the deep past. The choice is not to stop the storm. The choice is not to change history. The choice, as you said, is not to repeat it. We repeat it by laughing at the builder. We repeat it by trusting the facts of the world over the truth of the word. We repeat it by pounding on the door after it has been shut. We break the cycle by believing the warning. By building the ark, by holding to the faith. The story of Noah is not a history lesson. It is a user manual for the end of an age. The water is rising again, this time on our screens. The door is closing, hold on to faith. And remember, everyone can be the Noah of their own time. Part 15, the maestro of the final act. History is a mirror, and in the mirror of our times, one reflection is exceptionally clear. We spoke of leaders smiling beneath the banner of peace and security, but one leader, more than any other, seems to have been born for this moment. Donald Trump. Returning to the political stage is not just a politician. He is the embodiment of this very age. He is the symptom, not the disease. He is the echo of the days of Noah, an age of building, of boasting, of eating and drinking, and of absolute confidence in human ability. He is the maestro of the spectacle, while the true beast is the invisible digital system. The algorithm, the network of control, as we discussed in Part 2 themed. That system needs a face. It needs a salesman. It needs a master of ceremonies. It needs a charismatic avatar, someone who can make the system feel like a human victory. Trump does not sell policy. He sells emotion. He does not sell truth. He sells a story. He is perfectly suited to speak of a permanent agreement, because he embodies the absolute confidence that man can get it done. He represents the pinnacle of human hubris, the pride that believes there is no problem, not even the 1,000-year-old spiritual problem of the Middle East, that a good contract, a brilliant business deal, cannot solve. He is the perfect instrument for a world that has replaced conviction with emotion. Because he is the master of emotion, the conductor of attention, the one who understands that in the digital age, truth doesn't matter as much as the story that wins. Part 16, the permanent agreement as the covenant of sand. And so, we come to the central policy, the Abraham Accords, the permanent agreement for the Middle East. This is the system's masterpiece. This is the fulfillment of the prophecy. He will seek to change the times and the laws. How does it change the laws? By taking the Holy Land, a land defined by divine covenant by God's promise, and redefining it in the terms of commerce. It turns Jerusalem and Judea from a spiritual inheritance into a tech hub, a financial center, a tourist hotspot. It replaces the law of God with the law of the market. It paves over the ancient heritage and calls it rebuilding. How does it change the times? By unilaterally declaring an end to a conflict that prophecy says cannot end this way. It is the human declaration that it is finished on a political stage, a blasphemous mimicry of a far more sacred declaration. This policy, praised as the greatest breakthrough of our age, is the false Noah's Ark. The entire world is rushing to get on board this ark. The Arab nations, Israel, Europe, America, all climbing aboard, because it is logical, it is practical, it is profitable, promises peace and security for all. It is the perfect human solution. But it is the covenant of sand we spoke of in Part 6. It is built on human convenience, economic prosperity, and shared security interests. It is built on everything except the rock of divine truth. And when the storm comes, when the sudden destruction arrives, it will disintegrate. Part 17. The great religious event, the ultimate deception. The great religious event of our age is not a miracle in the sky. The great religious event is the acceptance of this agreement. This is the final deception, and it is brilliant. The Antichrist system does not come and say, renounce God. It comes and says, we have achieved what your God promised, peace in the Middle East. It comes as an angel of light. It brings peace, and this is the great apostasy, or falling away. It is not a loud renunciation of faith, but a quiet reprioritization. It is the moment when even people of faith, tired of conflict, tired of waiting, look at the permanent agreement and say, surely this must be God's will. Look, it's so good. It's so practical. Let's support it. They choose the solution of man over the warning of prophecy. They choose the comfort of a false peace over the difficult, narrow path of being watchful. And what does this peace do? It accomplishes the final purpose of the beast, the system. To guarantee this new peace, what do we need? We need a more integrated global financial system to manage the new prosperity. We need a shared digital identity system to ensure security for travel and commerce. We need a more sophisticated surveillance system to stop the extremists, which is to say, anyone who opposes this new peace. Trump's political agreement becomes the justification for handing total power to the digital system. Peace and security is the perfect excuse to implement the mark of the beast, a system without which no one can buy or sell. It is presented not as oppression, but as a necessary upgrade for a new, peaceful world.